Welcome to Off Track with Jamie Little. On this show, I talk to those who've made an impact in NASCAR racing and those who've been influenced by the sport as well. From retired drivers to celebrities from different backgrounds, we dive into the past, present, and personal opinion. So sit back and enjoy some relaxed, informative conversation as we go off track. She's the most successful female in auto racing, from winning an IndyCar in 2008 to capturing the pole for the 2013 Daytona 500. Danica Patrick knocked down barriers for over 12 years in a male-dominated sport. Since retiring in 2018, she has shifted gears and continues to find success off track. She's created her own clothing line, wrote a book, owns a winery, hosts a successful podcast, and continues to motivate people through her teachings of fitness and overall health. She's been an inspiration to me since we first met back in 2004. I'm excited to catch up with Danica to see what she's working on and to get her take on current events. Here's Danica Patrick. So Danica, it's awesome to see you. I feel like it's been so long and so much has happened since the last time we talked. How are you dealing with things these days with quarantine life?
I'm good. I love cooking and I work out by myself. So that's pretty much the majority of my days.
Yes. And your puppies, they're still running around. I see them make, they're running through your videos when you're working out.
Yeah. Ella's still crazy and Dallas loves the sun. So she just lays outside. She's like, she would have the best tan if she didn't have fur.
Oh, that's awesome. So
you love the dogs too. Have you been able to see other dogs much?
I have. Well, my 4 dogs, I can't imagine people that are going through quarantine that don't have animals or kids, like neither. I can't imagine because the dogs just keep you so entertained and make you feel loved all the time and they don't talk back too.
Yeah, they're I find it to be like animals. I think you see real personalities with animals. Because they don't really expect anything. You don't like, there's no expectation levels. It's just your heart.
Yes. I don't know. The first time I ever learned about a Malinois was when you got yours. And then flash forward a couple of years and I do a show called America's Top Dog. And you see how amazing those dogs are and what they're capable of.
Ella is extremely athletic. I mean, even like when you watch her like run through water, she can like still sprint in water because she just like pogos and she's so high off the ground with her legs. She can jump anywhere. I mean, the thing about a Malinois is if you don't want it to go do things like jump over fences or, anything athletic, don't ever show them that they can do it. That's the only thing that holds a Malinois back from doing it, I think, because their capabilities are just so extreme that if you show them they can do something, then that's all of a sudden accessible. However, the driving force sometimes to find me or to get to something or food driven or something like that, they will find a way through that. But it's I was working out this morning and she just like runs laps around me and she pants. And I don't know if you've ever seen this with other Malinois, but she licks her legs a lot. Like it's like her nervous twitch. I don't even know if that's a normal thing with Malinois or if that's just Ella, but she if she's not either sleeping or running or walking around or chasing me, she's licking her paws out of nervous energy, like licking.
They have incredible energy and it's just like they have to be going. Their drive is unlike any other animal I've ever seen. So what made you get a Malinois to begin with, of all the different types of dogs that you could get?
She was an unplanned child. This was many years ago. I was on a girls' trip to the Bahamas. It was an off weekend in NASCAR and there was a hurricane that was coming. And so either you had to leave right away or like ride it out. And so it was, encouraged to not ride it out because I just didn't. I'm always this, I always have this attitude, like, it'll all be fine. It'll work out. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. But anyway, so couldn't get a good commercial flight. So then I planned a private plane to come, and then I couldn't turn back once it was there. It wasn't like I couldn't show up for my commercial flight. So the private plane was there, and I'm like, I am not wasting all this money. So by the time the trip was over with, it had gone from like a hurricane to a tropical storm to the day of departure was nothing. It was literally nothing anymore. And I was so pissed. And so on the flight home, I was like, I need to do something unique with my weekend, since it was, I think, a Saturday. And I was like, I have something fun, since I'm supposed to be in the Bahamas with my girlfriends having a good time. And so I had sent a message to the trainer who took Dallas and took care of her and watched her. Like, he would take her home to his house. I said, I have to pick up Dallas early. I'm so sad that she can't hang out with her friends. And he's like, well, you can take this one home. And I was like, no. And my picture back to him was like, because he sent me a picture of Ella when she was 8 weeks old. And yeah, you. And I just thought, oh, please don't put that on me. And I wasn't going to take her. And he's like, just take her for a couple of days. I was like, oh gosh, all right. And then of course what am I going to do? Return her? No, she would, I remember so when I first picked her up, she pooped all over the back of the car. Like, that was the first thing she did, riding in the car on the way home. And then she just laid by me whenever I'd go do yoga or anything. Like, she was just my shadow. And so she was an unplanned child, but she's also so energetic and so loving. And you just love, don't you, Ella? You just love.
She's so sweet too.
Yeah. While Dallas is super independent, and she has zero, like, you could want to pet her and she'll just walk by you. Like, she'll just kind of do this, like, and Ella's just waiting for it. So
that's interesting. I didn't know that she was just unplanned, because usually Malinois aren't unplanned, like that you're going to get that dog, and there's a big plan for having a Malinois.
Yeah, no. But it's really, the good thing is if you have one, they just, but if you don't and you're thinking about it, they just need a lot of activity.
Yes.
Like, they need to be able to run and open it up and jump and chase things. And they're just really athletic dogs.
Yes. So they're keeping you busy. So a lot of people haven't really maybe seen you. Maybe they've heard your podcast or seen some of the things that you're doing, but don't know what Danica is up to since retirement, which I cannot believe it's been 2 years basically from NASCAR.
Yeah.
What has that transition been like when racing was basically everything that you knew?
Yeah. It's been great. Honestly. I mean, I love being able to plan things, to travel, make it to a concert or a wedding, or plan a trip months out. Holy crap, I can plan it any time of the year. Being with Aaron, I love football. So I love going to the games, and, we always have people out for the weekend. So the entertaining is fun, and I love taking care of people and cooking. And also just that opportunity to do other things that are fun and I enjoy, and do less. Like, why does it always have to be, what are you doing now? It's like, I'm doing nothing. And so what?
And that's so not life when you're racing.
Yeah. It's just a relentless schedule. And also it's like a small bubble. Like, you just see the same people do the same thing and have the same situation every weekend. And it's a confined space, energetically, physically, kind of, because it's like the same people, even though you travel all over the country. It's the same circus from weekend to weekend. So it just feels like a bubble. And so I like getting out of the bubble.
Well, that was a big part of your life, from IndyCar. From go-karts, really, all the way through NASCAR at the Cup Series. And obviously you made it there because of your drive, because of your skill and ability. Do you miss that part of it, the competing part of racing?
No, not really.
You stepped away
I think that
at the right time.
You can make anything competitive, right? You can
Yeah.
You can make it competitive, whether, for my wine to sell, or for more people to be doing my Instagram live workouts, or like all of that, you can associate, you can get some competitiveness in it. Like, is it growing? Is it getting better? Am I making money? Is this, how do I monetize, or how do I reach more people, or how do I help more people? Like, there's always a way that you can get a competitive aspect out of something.
So you, I guess, without a question, stepped away at the right time.
I don't know. I mean, I just stepped away when I felt like it, when I felt it all. Yeah. I mean, I guess one of the things that, I was doing a writing prompt class, and the prompt was, what did you have to, what did you have to forgive yourself for? And it's a deep class. I mean, we just all cry every weekend. It's like super deep, super duper deep. It's, I have to forgive, like, on some level, I have to forgive myself for evolving. That's what I said, because whether it's people or jobs or whatever it is, like, I don't think it's a badge of honor that you haven't changed. I'm trying to change. And so, part of that change now is also slowing down to the point where I don't do as many competitive things. It doesn't need to be like that. It doesn't, I can just, for me to get out of my head and into my body is something kind of new for me. So you can't do that when you just keep busy, when you just keep distracted. You don't know what's really going on in your emotional body, and you don't know what you really like. What are you really feeling about things? What do you really want? And, I just think that evolving is something that's always been a part of my life. And I embrace that. But that's what happened with racing, is I just kind of evolved out of it. I literally felt uncomfortable at the track at the end. Like, I was like, I just don't, everything from the people to the, like, the cutthroat dynamic of it, to the, I don't know, just like the attitudes of, having to, sometimes it was, I think, a space where people had it wasn't that much fun, like whether it be pit crews, maybe just like, oh my God, here we go, another weekend. Or, drivers you have to be to be successful. Like, do I really have to treat you like crap on the track to get ahead? Like, all of those dynamics started to feel really uncomfortable for me. And so I just outgrew it. And I just outgrew it for where I was in my head and my heart. And so leaving was not a super, super hard choice in the end. I mean, I think the tangibles of it, the, what am I going to do now? Where am I going to go? What am I going to live? Like, I don't know. There's just all kinds of other things that are logistical that have a lot to wrap your head around. But being done was something I was just ready for.
I think that's what stops people from branching out and saying, you know what, I'm going to start something totally different and walk away from this world or this life that I've known, because of fear of the unknown. What gave you the confidence in yourself that you knew, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to be able to spread my wings?
I think one thing I've realized about myself as well is that I'm bored unless I'm uncomfortable. So racing was uncomfortable. Like going really fast, or like restarts or qualifying. I mean, there's a lot of discomfort, but I'm bored unless I'm uncomfortable. So whether it's pushing myself physically or pushing myself emotionally or mentally, through discipline or through vulnerability, like whatever those things are, I'm bored unless I'm uncomfortable. And I don't think the uncomfort needs to be looked at like painful or bad. It's just like pushing myself. Like, I am bored unless I'm somehow pushing myself in some way.
And you see that in all the things I think that you touch. You go places where maybe it could make other people uncomfortable. So when was that? I remember when you were kind of going through this transition, when you were racing and you were becoming different than you had been, and you started being more self-reflective. And that's led into your book and your cooking and your fitness and your mental health and helping other people with that. When did you really start to embrace that and start saying, this is me now?
Yeah. Yeah. I really feel like the way into that world for me was music and nature. So I kind of actually started listening to some different music. I have recently, well, not super, super recently, but kind of super recently become friends with the people that really helped with that transition. So the backstory would be I was on a girls' trip in Chicago, and we rented a boat, went out on the lake for the day, and I was playing country music all day long on the boat. We were having a good time. And then my friend Stacy asked, can I play some other music? And I was like, if there's two things I'm really controlling about, it's about it's about music and temperature. I will adjust your temperature in your house if I'm uncomfortable. Like, I hate being hot, I hate being cold, and I'm very sensitive. But music too. So I was like, sure, put on whatever you want. And she put on Trevor Hall. And when you put on Trevor Hall, you also get another artist named Nako that plays a lot. And so Nako was somebody that Stacy had gone to concerts of, and she had seen him in concert a little bit more than Trevor, but so between the two of them, like, they're friends now. Nako was just on my podcast last week. I interviewed Trevor back last year. That's already come out. But now I know Trevor's wife, and we're all friends, and we FaceTime, and we like almost daily, like, we talk. And so they were like the musical. I listened to their music while I would go on walks. And where I lived in North Carolina, and there was a big property, and I could walk the dogs for, an hour or two. And it was so relaxing. And so I'd get out into nature and I'd listen to that music, and I just got into a different vibrational state. Like, I don't know, like, I really yearned for the time to be reflective, the deep thoughts, the deep emotions. The words in the songs even resonate. They're deep. So I don't know. I just started to transform. And I started to feel the big contrast too, to where I was in my life at that point in relationship and what I was doing. And like, I just wasn't really fitting in anymore. And so again, I evolved, and I don't feel I'm grateful for that. But I would say that probably started 5-6 years ago, at least, where I just sort of just started to shift. And it's such a long process. And if you tell anybody about the spiritual journey to the self, which is really ultimately what it is, no one would sign up for it. However, as soon as you start the process, you don't ever turn back, because you never could, because it's a journey for truth. The truth for what you are here for, the truth for what is reality, the truth for who I am. The wanting to grow through it all. And I don't really think there's much. I think that's the most important thing. It's the most important thing to me now.
That was a long journey when you realize, at what point you finally went through with the big changes. And a lot of big changes happen within 1 year, which was 2 years ago. We know you decided you were walking away from the sport. You and Ricky's relationship had run its course. And then suddenly there's a new man in your life. Aaron pops into your life. How has he been?
Within 2 days, I quit my job. I left the house, left North Carolina, and I left my relationship within 2 days.
That is a lot, for considering it was a journey that was probably already 4 years in the making at that point, right?
Well, no, I think that all came together. On some level, yes, of course, there's the foundation of it that I was just talking about. So yeah. But that all kind of evolved over that year in 2017. And I had major meltdowns that year. Through that summer and that fall, I just wanted to go to sleep and wake up in 3 months. That's what I wanted. I kept saying that. I'm like, I just want to go to sleep and I'll wake up in 3 months. And then once you get to the other side of it, you look back and you go, oh yeah, I can do that. And so when you talk to somebody that's gone through big transitions, it doesn't always sound so bad, but when you're in it, you're like, no, mine's worse. Like, it's really, really bad. But that's because when you look back, you when you're out of it, you're not in it. It's like being sick, right? When you're sick, It feels like just death, right? It's just hell. And you do anything to feel well. And then when you look back, you're like, oh God, it was just a day. It was just a day.
Right. Yeah.
But in the middle of it, it's like the worst thing ever. And that's kind of how growth is too. It feels really, really heavy and emotional. And you are processing big things about who you are and what you want, what you stand for and all these things. But on the other side of it, you go, oh yeah, I can handle that.
Yeah. And you did. So I mentioned Aaron, and I know when you met him, when you first talked about him, he was clearly different. Where did he kind of fit into your spiritual journey?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's just like me. I mean, we're just similar. We're just so similar. Our interests, our open-mindedness. I think too, for anything that while we might not be exactly the same, or we are so open-minded to hearing about it and changing our mind. And so we're both just out there with our thoughts and our interests and our perspectives. Yeah, I don't think that either of us want to fit in a box. And that's the part about open-mindedness is it's like, no, I'm not that. This isn't, I don't fit in that box. There is no box. It's like, I think this, and now I might think that, and I learn more about this. And we're both we're just on the same page with that stuff.
So when you guys met, obviously you were still racing, and he got to come to his first couple of races, your final Daytona 500 and the Indy 500. But what has it been like for you not being the competitor that you were and getting to sit back and watch him be the athlete, the competitor? Has that been strange, or have you fit into that role?
I love it. I have no problem with it. I love being supportive of people. That does not bother me at all. I don't need to be I don't need to be recognized. And I say that because I say that period, but also in contrast to him, I'm not famous at all. Like, I mean, if I had an issue with it, it would have come up right away, because he's next level to me for sure. And there's one more level after him, which is like, Brad Pitt and them, but he's next level to me. So, it's totally fine for me. I love being supportive, and what brings me happiness and satisfaction is our relationship and our growth and our like adventures that we go on together. Yeah. So that's what brings me happiness, not being recognized or not any of those other things that have been part of my life. It's just really about adventure and growing.
Now, something you and I have always kind of touched on, you hear the pups in the background. Obviously your sister, she just had her third baby. And I know that's something that you've said in the past, you would like to have kids one day. Is that still something you're hoping happens?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Brooke to write the manual on it. I'm just waiting for her to write the book, the doula book or the whatever book. She loves that stuff. That is her passion. I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about it a ton. I mean, because we're related. So
yes,
I'm sure she has, but she just loved, and she's such a good mom. And and what a great time. I mean, Quinn, her third just came along, and for Chase to be able to be home with her, I think has been probably really helpful. Even though she's like super mom, I think she was like on her own with 3 dogs and 3 kids, including an infant at like 1 or 2 weeks in. And she just handles it. But she's a rock star. If that day comes with kids, I know exactly who to call for any questions whatsoever. And that's my sister.
She will have you covered for sure.
Yeah.
She does. She makes it look easy.
Yeah.
Damn her.
Yeah. She does. I mean, and you know what the thing is though, is that she's very honest about the days that aren't so good. Like she has a transparency to her emotions, which include the love of her kids and teaching and all those, like all of the good stuff. But then also like, I lost it today. Or like, I just want to like put them in a room and lock the door or something, or like, I'm really making these things up, by the way, but she talks about the frustration. She talks about the frustrations of it too. And that's just true. So she makes it look easy. Yeah, it's very natural to her, but just like anybody and any job, period, there's always difficult days.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, you, this whole podcast thing was something so new to you. Interviewing is new to you. It's something that you've always been the interviewee. So you've come a long way. Your podcast is doing great, and you have some amazing people on there, including Aaron was one of your guests. I can only imagine how nerve-wracking it would be to sit and interview. But what's that been like for you, just learning just how to interview and how to have your own podcast?
I realized I'm a terrible listener. I'm very curious, but I have had to really grow in that department of learning how to listen better. And actually, Aaron told me, listen, you need to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And I was like, man, that's so good. Because if you listen to understand, inevitably there's a question in there and it follows a flow. But if you just listen to respond, then it's might be somewhere else and it might not have the flow, and you might not be listening that closely. There might be little nuggets in there. So I think that's something I've definitely learned a lot about, is listening, and listening to understand, and that there's preparation. Like before we did this today, there was probably some level of like thought process as to what we're going to talk about, what you want to know, what other people might want to know. I don't know what your process is. I don't know if you write things down. I don't know but there's going to be some level of process when you're interviewing someone. And just so everyone knows, before I got on with you to be interviewed, I did nothing, absolutely nothing. Because you're just asking me questions I have answers to. So exactly. I don't need to think about that. So it's much harder to interview. However, another thing that I try and remind myself is that I can't learn if I'm talking. And so I love learning. So I need to shut up and let people talk. And people usually, if you give them enough pause, they'll always say a little more.
That's so true. Those are really good points.
Do you have some advice for me? I mean, you've been interviewing people for so long. You're so good at it.
Well, thank you. I feel like I'm rusty through this quarantine. I'm like, I need to work. I feel like I'm, can I still do this? And you and I talked for a while, I think when we were hiking in Tahoe and you're getting ready to host the ESPYs. And I think, like you said, it's all preparation. To me, I will outwork anybody. I think knowledge is power. And the more information you have on somebody, the better it's going to be, no matter what. I think that there is a flow. Like you said, you prepare your questions. I think that there's always usually a transition from one topic to another. And I think the hardest thing is when you have select questions, to make it come off like it's conversational and not that you're reading. I think I'm a note taker, so it's really hard for me to look away from notes, but I love having conversation and I love eye contact. So I think that's the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that moment of abandoning the questions and following a flow that you're like, all right, I'm out here in left field. Let's see where this goes. And if I get lost, then it's going to seem really random when I come back to this question, but inevitably the flow is like where the real resonance is, I think, with the listener, where they follow really nicely. It's natural.
Right. Exactly. It's not. And I think it comes down to the person you're interviewing too. You and I have a relationship, and this whole series that I'm doing right now is people that I know and that I've interviewed. So it's more fun to dive into things. Whereas if it's somebody that you don't know or is going to be a harder nut to crack, it's harder to go rogue and pull it off. Right.
What do you do when there's more time than words? Like when someone's not a storyteller, because you need a storyteller. Yeah. A storyteller is like so important because they fill a lot of time, and it's also really interesting. And people can then have a visual of something. But if someone just kind of answers like no, yes, like what do you do?
That's the worst.
What do you do?
Well, you hope that you're prepared enough, right? So that you can ask more follow-up and dive into it so that they have to elaborate. But the cool thing about my job, I think my normal job being on pit road, it's all about being succinct. So it is harder because you have to know the right question to elicit the right answer. But at the same time, you're not having to fill a bunch of space. Shorter is better. That's a good place to be.
Good advice.
Yeah, long form is easier. So Danica, today before we started this, I brought it up, but today is a big day, and one I think it'll always live in the history books. The day that a female, Miss Danica Patrick, went to victory lane in the IndyCar series at the Twin Ring Motegi track, and that was 12 years ago. I can't believe it. What kind of thoughts come back when you think of that day?
That was a long time ago. I think of, I'm, learning to look at my life with a lot more, humble pride and perspective, and to be really grateful for those experiences, those things that happened. And instead of look back at it and be like, man, I wish I would have done more of that. I wish I would have won more, or like took too long, or, that doesn't serve me. Right. Like, rewrite history for myself in my mind of like, great career, great job. I have a hard time giving myself credit for things, or feeling like feeling adequate or good enough, or like I accomplished enough. So I'm learning how to rewrite history in my mind. So when I look back at Motegi, I think it was a great day. And I'm so glad I won. Like, I'm so glad I won an IndyCar.
Yeah. I think it was important for you to win. And I think that's something that maybe gets more important and more satisfying and gratifying to you as you get older, to know that you were able to do that. Because who knows? Will we ever see a woman win at the top level in motorsports again? In NASCAR, IndyCar? I don't know.
I'm sure. But, it's just how long or when, that we don't know.
It's interesting, Danica, and you probably get it too, but people often say to me, Jamie, where's the next Danica coming from? When are we going to have another woman at this level? And it's a hard thing for me to answer. And I always say the same thing I always said when you were there, that we need the right person, the right skill level to be there. To have a woman would be awesome. And there's women out there racing all over the place, but where she's going to come from, I don't know. But the last thing we need is to throw a woman in just so that we fill that void.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, my example that I would always use is that if it takes 100 guys to come through to find one really good one, it just takes a lot longer for girls. It takes 100 to come through. I mean, the percentage, if all is the same, then, it just takes a lot longer to find them.
Something that I wasn't even planning on asking you about this, but when I look back at your career, somebody that I always like to give credit to, and it's obviously you're doing your skill level, but Bobby Rahal, the fact that he was able to take a chance with you, I think is something that really no other owner at that level has been willing to do for another woman. What do you think of Bobby and back in that day, what happened?
Yeah. I think he felt, we look back now as we've talked, of course, many times since, but when I put him on the spot at Milwaukee, and I had been told some random thing, like you could have a full sponsor if there's a letter of intent that you're going to race Atlantics for Bobby. And so I just told him that, like, that was what I was told. So I just conveyed that information. He said, okay. And he says now when he looks back on that, and after he told me, okay, which we signed the letter of intent 2 weeks later at Laguna, the guys around him were like, Bobby, what the hell did you just agree to? He's like, I don't know. So I'm so glad that it worked, just so that he could be right. Like,
oh my
but
gosh.
he took the chance. Not only did he take the chance for Atlantics, but then, he put me in an IndyCar too. So, which I found out very abruptly at the media day in 2004 when Buddy and Vitor were driving for him. I was just standing there in the room, and he said there was like it was a press conference with the team, and it was media day. And he said, Danica's going to drive at the Indy 500 next year. And I was standing in the room, and I'm like, what? I knew there was an option on my contract the next year to do IndyCar, but it was May. It was May. Oh so, so I found out that abruptly, but I'm glad it all worked out for both of us, for him to, be able to benefit and be a part of that, and get credit, and he deserves it, and to be right, and for me to have the opportunity and me to have done what I did. Great.
That was pretty cool. I remember those days. It seems like yesterday, but unfortunately it was a long time ago at this point, right? That was awesome. So when you look back at NASCAR, my last question basically, when you look at NASCAR, what stands out to you about your accomplishments, or one time maybe that you'll just remember and appreciate?
I liked it. I like NASCAR. I had fun driving those cars. I was just the other day, I was looking at Dario Franchitti's going back and doing like pictures of his cars over the years and stories. And he got to NASCAR and he like writes the caption underneath. And he's like, God, like, what was I thinking? He's like, I'm driving down the back straightaway in an ARCA car going, what am I thinking? And that's not how I felt. I felt really comfortable. I really liked it. I really enjoyed the racing. I mean, the cars definitely, I mean, when I went back and got in an IndyCar for the 500 at the end 2 years ago, that was like, whoa. I mean, I would say that they're both really hard to be really good at, for sure. But like just purely driving an IndyCar versus a stock car, I mean, stock cars were a little easier to just like get in and drive. It's always hard to be the fastest, like equal hard to be the fastest, but just driving an IndyCar I mean, the sensations are so different between the two. So, I mean, I look back and I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I loved the races were fun. I'll always look back to places like, you know, my first full season with Daytona and being on the pole and, you know, having a shot at the win at the end, to my great races at like Martinsville or even Kansas. Like the first time I ever got my first new car and I was up to third. And like, I mean, I remember the good things about it and the fun I had. And, it was no regrets. No, nothing at all. It was a great time. I mean, I'm not afraid of change. So clearly, I mean, that's the story of my life. Again, evolve, right? So I just found myself at the point in my IndyCar career where I wasn't having as much fun anymore. And so I just did something different and I changed the music, and can't feel bad for changing, right? It's my life.
Doing awesome things, girl. Keep motivating people through fitness and your cooking and mental health and spiritual health. I love following along with you.
Thanks. You too. You're doing a great job.
Thanks, girl.
For more great NASCAR on Fox content, subscribe to our channel. It's somewhere right around here.